We are looking at two different financial philosophies. On one side, the traditional Indian pressure to anchor your wealth in physical, heavy real estate. On the other, the modern push to float your savings in lightweight, broad market equities. This split-screen matrix shows two distinct profiles, Rahul on the left and Amit on the right. They are the same age, earn the same salary, and both have 50 lakhs in savings. Notice how the left side updates. Rahul picks his 50 lakhs as a 20% down payment on a 2.5 crore residential property, taking a heavy home loan at 8.5%. Now watch the right side. Amit drops his 50 lakhs as a lump sum into a broad Nifty 50 index fund. He sets up a $25,000 monthly SIP and walks away. On day one, Rahul holds a massive physical structure, bundled with decades of high-interest debt. Amit holds a digital asset, a fluctuating number on a screen, with zero debt. Who is actually going to be wealthier after 20 years? To get the honest answer, we have to throw away the casual napkin math and run the real numbers. Rahul's math feels brilliant right out of the gate. He finds a tenant paying 80,000 rupees monthly. On paper, that rent check hitting his account feels like immediate, tangible profit. He gets the social proof, too. A physical key in his pocket. He can point to his building, a respected story for family gatherings. But his real financial advantage is leverage. Rahul is controlling a 2.5 crore asset using only 50 lakhs of his own cash. That is a 5-to-1 ratio, multiplying every percentage point of upward movement in the property's value. Contrast that with Amit. He has no keys to hand over, no monthly cash flow coming in, and zero social status at dinner parties. His entire investment is just a digital account balance that ticks up and down slightly every single day. On day one, real estate wins the psychological battle. It gives Rahul immediate social standing, combined with the sheer mathematical force of bank leverage. Look at this image of the Reserve Bank of India. Data from their house price index shows that while real estate appreciation in India has historically averaged 8 to 9%, high property prices in major cities severely compress the actual yields an investor sees. This waterfall chart breaks down Rahul's gross rent. Reality hits fast. Property taxes, insurance, and the cost of vacancy, sitting empty 1 month a year, carve out massive chunks. Finally, routine maintenance and capital expenditures strip away another 1 to 2% annually. That calculation ignores the non-financial toll. Rahul spends personal time screening tenants, taking late-night calls, and coordinating weekend repairs. When you recalculate actual net cash flow after taxes, debt service, and repairs, Rahul's monthly profit is near zero, or bleeding negative in early years. For the average investor, running a highly leveraged rental property is an unpaid, high-stress part-time job. Meanwhile, Amit puts exactly 0 hours into his portfolio. His time commitment over the years remains non-existent. Look at the National Stock Exchange building. Over decades, the broad Indian equity market has established a documented historical track record. This compounding curve shows the trajectory. Historically, the Nifty 50 delivers roughly 10 to 13% annualized returns. It requires patience. Growth is agonizingly slow for the first 5 years, but accelerates exponentially in the 15 years that follow. Amit holds a secondary advantage, total liquidity. If he needs cash, he can access exact portions of his wealth instantly from his phone, without having to list and sell an entire house. The true mechanical advantage of the stock market is that it decouples wealth generation from your personal time and effort. But equities do not offer a smooth, risk-free ride. Amit pays for convenience in a different currency. Look at people watching this BSE ticker screen. In 2008, investors watched the market crash 37%, staring at their shrinking net worth in real time. This chart illustrates a more recent panic. In March 2020, the market suffered a violent 34% drop in a single month, wiping out years of accumulated gains instantly. The psychological toll of watching half of your life savings vanish on a digital screen in a matter of weeks is brutal. This creates a behavioral trap that destroys retail investors, the urge to panic and sell at the absolute bottom, permanently locking in temporary losses. Unlike Rahul, Amit receives no monthly rent check. He has no steady cash flow to distract him during multi-year market recoveries. Amit's zero-effort strategy demands an uncommon level of emotional discipline just to survive the drawdowns. The true cost of stock market compounding is psychological. It requires the endurance to do absolutely nothing when it feels that the sky is falling. Fast forward 20 years. We calculate the final net worth of both men after all the expenses, debt paydowns, taxes, and market cycles. Here is how the math converges. Rahul's 8% annual appreciation applied to a massive 2.5 crore leveraged asset eventually met Amit's 12% compounding on a smaller starting sum. Over 2 decades, these two forces, leverage versus pure growth, pushed both men into the same financial ballpark, sitting on roughly 4 to 5 crore rupees. Rahul actively worked for his wealth. He battled tenants, replaced roofs, and carried the stress of high-interest debt for 2 decades. Amit waited passively for his. He endured terrifying market volatility, but he retained 100% of his free time. The core trade-off between real estate and stocks comes down to how you want to live. You are choosing between continuous physical effort and emotional peace. This investor profile checklist gives you a framework for your own decision. It splits into 2 columns, the business builder for real estate and the silent compounder for stocks. Real estate fits investors who live in cities where rental yields exceed 4%. It requires you to treat the property like an active business and manage the risks of heavy leverage. Index funds are built for time-poor professionals. They prioritize peace, require high liquidity, and demand an iron stomach to ignore market crashes. There is a balanced middle ground. Owning one well-chosen primary residence while systematically deploying remaining savings into broad index funds offers a very realistic path. The danger is blindly following internet hype or family pressure without running the exact numbers for your own tax bracket, city, and risk tolerance. Real estate and stocks both create millionaires, but they only work if you calculate the true cost, in both dollars and time, before you start playing the game.